Phil is a global expert in business agility. He has more than 15 years of hands-on experience in this field. Just leading large-scale agility transformation at companies such Suncorp, IBM, Honeywell Aerospace, World Fuel Service, many other. I think he was working in IBM at that time, and since then I followed the whole convention and seminar where Phil gave a speech. Business agility is a word a bit new in Italy, but now internationally is quite a trend. As most important competitive factor today, because competition has shifted from beating competitors to establishing a unique relation with your users, even before they become customers. So business agility means integration, operational excellence with the information flow we exchange with our customers, constantly adapting operation to the knowledge we develop of customer need through data. But now I think I let the microphone at Phil. Phil.
Thank you, Fabio. Buongiorno, Italy, and ciao, everyone. I'm going to try and keep this as dynamic as possible. And I'm going to start by talking about what is growth and profitability in relation to business agility and how business agility actually helps this to change and to grow. Today, I'm just going through 4 portions. The first one is actually digging into the why. Why is any sort of change important? And what are the drivers behind any company? Once you understand the drivers, you know what to change, and then you know how to change it. So we go from the why to the what and to the how at the end. We're going to start with the why. And I've walked into so many companies, large and small, and the first thing they tell me is, yeah, we want a business agility because the CEO wants it, or because the boss said so, or because my competitors are doing this. But this is not truly the why. This is not the intent. This is not the reason. So what I try to do very often is to peel the onion, to open it and find out what is underneath it. Why do these people really want it? And at the heart of most of this is the shareholders of the company want growth and profits. They want profitability. And even if you're in a not-for-profit or a governmental organization, growth is important in terms of number of customers that you serve, and profits, not just in terms of being, let's say, having a lot of profit, but not-for-profits also need to cover their costs. Okay. And in today's world, with everything changing and with COVID, and we all know, we were just laughing, Fabio and myself, a little while ago, how we're locked up for the last year. And I've been fortunately a part of a beautiful startup that we got going in November 2019. It's called Zing. And we've had to grow and make profits through the pandemic, with total uncertainty about everything. So what was important and what is important? And what I'm going to share with you now is not just for big companies. It matters for small companies. In our startup, we live what I'm going to show you. And it's the same model that the IBMs and the Honeywells use as well, on a different scale, but it's the same principles. So what are these? So if you look at growth and profitability and you go down and say, what is growth? What does it really mean? It means happy customers. And you will only get happy customers if you have the right product, the right functionality, the right features. You have the right price. You can have a fantastic product and you charge $2,000 a month, forget it. It has to be on time. It should not be 1 year later. It has to be releasing features every 2 weeks. Time to market. And it has to be the right quality. It doesn't have to be gold-plated, but it has to be the right quality. Now, what about the cost side? The profitability is the difference between your revenue, which you're getting in, and the cost. So you've only got 2 lines to play with. You can increase your revenue and reduce your cost, and there is your profitability. So how do you affect this bottom line? How do you move it down? Growth is about the top line. The bottom line goes down if you have the right people. In today's world, everything has to be digital. So you have to operate digitally. Right technology, right processes, and digital transformations are not so much about the technology. We all know that. It's about the people, the processes, and the structure of your organization, all put together with technology, is what gives you that winning end. And I call it the 4 E's. These are the 4 E's that you must get right to get growth and profitability. Effective strategy. If you don't have that, you cannot get the right price, the right product, the right people, the right process, nothing. And then you have to have happy, engaged talent. Without that, nothing else will work. You have to have efficient way of working. So that's processes, tools, techniques, structures, practices, everything. That's just the wow, the way of working. And you have to have enduring quality. And it's not just quality for 1 week. Your quality has to be there all the time. So these are the 4 E's that every company has to focus on if they want to grow and if they want to be profitable. So let's put all those 4 E's down here and let's look at them. You've got talent, strategy, efficient. But there is something missing at the heart of it, which is common to all 4 pieces. And that one thing is culture. If you don't have the right culture, you will not get the right people. You will not get engaged people. You get demoralized people. If you don't have engaged people, forget about efficient processes, forget about digital transformation, quality will be poor, and your strategy will not be clear. Because you need great leaders. So engaged talent means great leaders and great people. And they only come for culture. And what is culture? Culture is not about how much you pay somebody or what you say your culture is. Your culture is how you operate, how you live, and how you behave on a daily basis. And it has 2 parts. It's got a set of values and a set of principles. And we're going to go into that. Before we get into that, you say, okay, I've got a problem with strategy. Every company that I've dealt with has 1 or 2 pain points that are visible. You will never see all the points. You will see one. Oh, I have a quality problem. Somebody tells me I have a time to market problem. Somebody else says to me, we need to reduce cost. Another person tells me, our people are not engaged. Can you do business agility for that? It doesn't matter which single pain you see. All these are so tightly linked together that you cannot separate them when you're solving it. You cannot solve strategy or cost or process if you don't address the other 3. So let's start at the bottom. So what are your options? Let's look at if you're the manager, leader, program manager, change manager, CEO, CTO of a company. What can you do to solve these problems? You have 2 routes. Number 1, you can solve each problem by itself. So you can start an initiative to improve your process. Then you can start an initiative to hire great people, etc., etc. Or you can adopt a process. You can say, we're going to do lean. We're going to do design thinking. We're going to do agile. We're going to do Six Sigma, whichever one. So what has happened in the last 5 years? All these have come together, these approaches, under one umbrella called business agility. And that is because the values of all of them are exactly the same. And they bring in slightly different principles. So let's look at what Business Agility has done to pull these principles together and then put it in a certain way. So we're going to dive in a little bit into Business Agility now. So Business Agility, in order to deliver growth and profitability, really has three things. It has a set of values which are at the bottom. Without these values, nothing can operate. You will not get principles and practices. After that, there's a set of principles that should be in your mind. It's a mindset. You have to believe these principles. And when I say you have to believe these principles, I mean the leadership has to believe these principles, because there is proof out there, but we all know that you can show somebody all the proof you want, but if they don't have belief, then nothing happens. And finally, agility offers a set of practices that helps you live these values and principles. So if a leadership team actually believes in these principles and values and says, we want to do it, you can actually start by using the practices to change your behaviors and thus live the principles and values. Now, this is something that other ways of working never had. They never had practices. What they had was a blueprint, they had a framework, they had a diagram, they had a process, but practices were things that were missing. So this is something that over the 5 years, based on a historic set of practices, there are over 50 or 60, but I'm going to point out just 15 that can make it work. We're going to cover the values and principles now. So you have 4 values. That's it. At the heart of this is respect. If you do not respect human beings, and there's bullying, there's discrimination, there's authoritative working, you will not get the best out of people. And I don't need to be here telling you all that. I'm sure you all know that already. Respect is number 1. Transparency is number 2. So this means all about being able to be open and sharing in an honest way the information and the knowledge that we have. Now, of course, there is always some things that are confidential. We have to keep that confidentiality there, but we have to be transparent. Now, this one, fairness, is such an important one. It has not been raised as an important value. But what I have seen in my last year, almost 20 years now of doing agility, is this is one of the hidden values that destroy great teams. If people feel that they are not being treated fairly, then immediately they disengage. And once you're disengaged, that's the end of it. And last, you have to have the mother of all values, which is courage. Courage to speak up, courage to challenge, courage to talk, courage to share, courage to say you're wrong, courage to be corrected, etc. Now, a lot of people say, hey, but wait a minute, where is trust, Philip? Isn't trust an important value of agility? I don't think it's a value. I think it's an outcome. I think respect, transparency, fairness, and courage generate trust. If you have these 4 values, you automatically improve trust. And trust is one of the most important things for great teamwork. So we talked about it, 4 values. Now, let's talk about these principles. This is the mindset. And I've broken them down into 2 lots. We have 4 people principles and 4 process principles. The 4 people principles are actually quite simple. Look at the first one, the talent bar. I can't tell you how many companies I've been to that say they want to do agility. They start the agile process. And then I say, what is your recruitment process? Well, how do you recruit? How do you set a high bar? No, we just have an interview. Do you have a set way? No, we just have a chat. Maybe we have 2 interviews. But look at the great companies. Look at the Googles, the Amazons, the Spotify's, Hallmark cards. there are 19 interview steps, and they have the best people there, not for the money. Look at Amazon. They don't pay the best in the world, but they have great people, great leaders. And that's because the talent bar is high. That's very important. You can have the best processes, the best principles, the best way of working, the best agility, and you have poor people in terms of capability, you're not going very far. Now, the structure. You have to have small cross-functional teams, not the old hierarchies of all the business analysts with the manager and all the developers with the manager and all the marketing people with one. You have to have small cross-functional teams that work together with a very thin layer of management as possible. And I can talk about that later as to how much should it be, etc. Now, you need a culture of safety. And the Google Aristotle project has proven this, that if you don't have a safe environment, that means it's safe to challenge, it's safe to talk, it's safe to ask questions without being fired, it's safe to give your ideas to somebody, it's safe to say this is not right, and you won't be fired, then you've got the wisdom of the crowd. And lastly, you have to have a leadership style that is open to all this, to the values and principles. It has to be a more servant leadership style than an authoritative style. If you have a dictator, an authoritative person at the top, forget it. The values and principles will not come out. So 4 people principles. Now let's look at the 4 process principles. The first one is you have clarity of purpose. Now, this may seem as something strange. I do a little test with almost every company that I go into at the C-suite or at the department level or one thing. I sit all the managers down, or the CEO and CIO and CFO down. I give them a piece of paper and I say, please write down, each of you, the top 3 things that you think the company should be focusing on in the next 3 months. Just the top 3 things. Do you think I get the same list from every one of those leaders? Never. And this can be one of the biggest companies in the world to one of the smaller companies in the world. It's the same. There is no clarity. So imagine if you have 4 powerful horses pulling your carriage and each of them is pulling in a different way. Where do you think your carriage is going? Most probably nowhere. Or it's a lot of waste. And this is number 1 principle in getting the others right, because if you don't have this right, you can't get flow and collaboration and improvement. Now let's go to design for flow. Design for flow is all about keeping the principle of pull versus push. People pull work from a prioritized funnel of work, working on maybe 1, 2, 3 things at a time, not more. So they've got a work in progress limit. And they deliver value fast. That's how you have to design your processes. And if you can design that together with your org structure, because a process by itself is nothing, the process always sits in an org structure. So what you saw on the previous slide plus this is vital. You have org structure plus process. Now, the next one is collaboration. You may think that this is strange that Phil writes collaboration. Yeah, that's common. You'll be surprised how different collaboration is from communication. Most managers and leaders are good about communication. We sent out the strategy pack. That is not collaboration. That is communication. It's most probably one way, up or down. Collaboration is when you actually talk together and help develop something together. Fundamental difference, fundamental importance of all great companies. They're highly collaborative. And lastly, forget about best practice. Best practice is the death of all companies. You have to have a mindset of continuous improvement. The problem with best practice is both the 2 words. The first word is best. What is better than best? Oh, there's nothing better than best. We're already best. So you can't go anywhere. But if you train that no matter what your standard is, you only want to get better. You only want to get better. That is the mindset that the Toyota production system, lean, agility is all based on. It's based on feedback and continuous improvement. And for these, you need the right values. So we've looked at the 4 process principles as well. They're pretty simple, but it's amazing how if you take any company, you all work in companies, small and big, and you just do a little scorecard on these 8 process principles. Clarity of purpose. Score of 1 to 5, where do we think we are? Do all the CEO, CIO, CFO, CTO, CMO, everybody have the top 3 things that they should focus on in one line? What about design for flow? Are you pulling? Are you pushing? Are you truly collaborating? And you will find where your pain is. Now, this is great. So what business agility gives us are these 4 values, without which you're not going anywhere. And then you have these 8 principles, 4 people principles, 4 process principles. And what I call 15 agility practices. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of all these practices. I'm just going to show it to you, just in the interest of time. But by using these practices, you can actually change the behavior. So here they are. Now, very often, we know these practices on the right. These are Scrum practices. So if you're used to Scrum and Kanban and everything, you know the stand-up and retrospective and the showcase or the playback, the backlog grooming, iteration planning, all pretty simple. But that's not where the difference is. You can do all this every day, and if you don't use these and you don't change the clarity of purpose, you will have a problem. So I use another additional set of practices, ABCD strategy, how you build out a strategy collaboratively, how do you cascade your OKRs, I call it Oscars, because you're cascading your strategy down. How do you measure the org structure, the bureaucracy mass index? How do you structure your organization using the BMI standards? How do you solve problems using a problem smash practice, as opposed to discussing in meetings? You know, I call them goulash meetings, where you just go into the meeting and then you talk a little bit about strategy, 2 words about this problem, 3 words about that problem. Then there's a HR issue. Then you talk a little bit about something you need to do tomorrow, and you come out. That is not how we solve problems. You don't solve a problem in a meeting. And there's a little practice for that. This takes 20 minutes and it works like magic. Same thing for the wall of expectation, portfolio walls, your governance gates. Defining your governance gates is so important. Release planning, okay, this thing people know. Social contracts, also important, but it's something that people use. And finally, the walls of work. So an important suite, if you want to tackle all the aspects of strategy, way of working, engage people, and enduring, you have to address all those aspects. You can use the practices if you want. For example, in our small startup, we just live it. We don't do all the practices. Yeah, do we do the stand-ups? Yes. Retrospective, showcases, yes. This we do literally on a daily basis in Sing. We did the strategy. We meet every few months. Because we're just a small company of 20 people, the key results are cascaded literally every second week through. We've got a very low BMI score, bureaucracy mass index, etc., etc. So it doesn't matter, small company or big company, you can do this. The same principles matter. So shareholders want growth and profitability. Business agility delivers that. And it delivers that by using these 4 things to give you happy customers, right product, right price, right time. This is what determines your strategy. Helps you deliver this. I love Richard Branson when he says, you can forget about happy customers. Everybody talks about customer-focused design and customer-focused this and that. How can you focus on customers if your staff are not happy? So if you want customer focus, you need to first focus on employee focus. Employee focus will give you customer focus by default if you have got effective strategy and an efficient wow and focus on quality. So you have to look at all these closely connected, and that is profitability. Now, all very good, fantastic. We've got all this. How do you change? I'm just going to talk about this for 5 minutes because it's a subject in itself. I could talk for an hour just on change adoption. But there are 4 things you need for change adoption. The first one, and the first most important one, is you have to decide as a leadership team, what is the problem you're trying to fix? Why are you doing this? Not because the boss said so, or McKinsey report said so, or nothing. Why are you really doing this? You have to sit together as a leadership team and decide. Now, the difficult part in this decision, and I've had so many leaders say to me, can you prove to me that this method will work? Oh, nobody can prove to you. There's enough of material nowadays. We're almost maybe 5 to 7 years into business agility. You just go on to most of the websites as a Business Agility Institute, and you will find 100 articles and use case stories proving every point that I just made. Will you believe it? Of course not, because we are different, or you don't understand. This will not work here. There's always some reason. And that is why you have to decide whether you want to follow this. The other important point about the decision is you can't cherry pick. Yeah. So you can't say, you know, I want to be a marathon runner, but yeah, I'm not going to worry about my diet. And I'm not going to worry about, you know, watching my weight or staying fit, but I'm going to buy good running shoes and I'm going to go for a 10 minutes run every day. Hello, that's not going to help. So I find a lot of companies take the approach of the decision is too hard. So what they do is they say, oh, we'll just do stand-ups and retrospectives and we'll do a pilot. Pilot is not going to get you anything. There's enough of pilots done all over the world. You just have to read it. So decide. If you don't decide, don't start, please, because you're wasting your money. Yeah. Now, once the leadership decides, normally there will be some people who detract, who don't agree and who don't like it. And I had one company, it's quite interesting. They told me, we want you to help us go agile, and but the head of testing does not agree. So can we just do it without him? Oh, great. What do you think that went? No way. So you now have to commit. So that means the decision made by the senior leadership has to be committed by even those who don't agree. That is very big. Now, you cannot do that with communication. You can only do that with collaboration. You have to have workshops. You have to talk about the ADKAR process, ADKAR, awareness, desire, knowledge. If you don't get those first 3 parts of change management right, it's not going anywhere. So get the commitment of your senior leadership and your middle leadership there. And this has to be very firm, because at some point you have to say, I know you disagree, but you have to agree to commit, even if you disagree. There is no, you know, my side of the boat does not have a hole. The hole is on your side of the boat. That does not work. We're all in the same boat. Third point, I've seen many companies who commit, they decide, and then they don't support. So I've got one major bank I worked with. This bank all committed, even the CEO committed to going agile. We want to go deliver faster. Okay, fine. Guess what their budget was? One transformation leader, part-time, who has another job. That's it. That was their investment. It's not going to happen. The poor guy had, no time, and he was set up to fail. So you cannot set people up to fail. So you have to put your money where your mouth is. Transformations take time. It's a journey, as you can see down below. You have to put training in. You have to put awareness campaigns in. You run it as a change management process. And lastly, you have to measure, measure, measure. You have to measure the before and thereby see how you're improving. Now, you will always go through what I call the trough of disillusionment. So let us say you start by delivering 10 features a month, just an example. And you start your agility program. What do you think the result will be after 2 months? Will it be 10 features a month? Or will it be 8 features a month? Or will it be 15 features a month? It most probably will be 8 features a month. You will get a dip. Now, at that point, you go, oh my God, we're not doing what, this is not working. Stop the program, stop the program. Now, when you stop the program, guess what your total features per month is going to remain at? It's going to remain at 8 features a month. So don't give up. You have to persevere. You have to measure, and then you will see the improvement. Now, as the improvement comes, you celebrate. You don't have to do a big bang. You can do it in a small way, but the commitment and the decision has to be for the whole, whatever your department, your unit, your company, whatever area you choose. And you can implement it in a small, shared, incremental way. And that will give you the success, the growth, and the profitability using the basis of business agility. And with that, I'd like to stop here. You can always reach me for questions on any of the others on LinkedIn at any time. That's the best place to contact me. And with that, I'd like to say a thank you very much, and I'm open it up to Fabio and the questions.
Okay. So we have just a couple of questions, not so many, but I think they are coming now. Someone wrote, my question is the following: can Phil further elaborate on agile portfolio management practice can boost business agility? Personally, I found agile PPM practice a bit uncovered, even by available literature at this stage.
So very often what I see is that people pick up a methodology or a practice or a framework, and we're doing SAFe or we're doing this thing, and they expect the change to happen. Yes, it will happen. In some ways it will. Of course it's beneficial. But is it sustainable? Is it across everything? Is it making true growth and profitability? Mostly unlikely, because they're individual practices. And my message to all practitioners of any framework, whether it's SAFe or LESS or lean startup, and I can name 10 of them, Scrum, doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with those. They're all great. But you have to go underneath and tackle the values and the principles. If you get those right, portfolio management, PPPM, and SAFe methods, they will all work. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, no, we have a much more question. Very interesting, but using the strategy, how much has the business increased in terms of customer or sales growth? Are there any case history?
There is absolutely enough of case stories. I would recommend you just go to the Business Agility Institute. There's one place that they gather a lot of information. Go to Agile Alliance. That's another place that there's enough of case stories. And you have to look at the root components that I showed you. You cannot increase your sales if you don't have happy customers. To get happy customers, you need the right strategy, the right people, the right process, and the right quality. How do you improve that? Now, if you have another way to improve it, oh, fantastic. I'm not saying business agility is the only way. It's the way that I'm familiar with, and people call it different things, but I know many companies that I work with that do not use the word agility. They do not use the word agile. It's the values that matter. They all have the same values. For example, in our little startup in Zing, it's a business platform which is software as a service, so SaaS, vertically integrated platform. As a small business, you can use everything from the website to emails to bookings to backend, everything. We delivered it in 8 months, an entire ERP for small businesses, including backend, online, digital, everything, in 8 months. Now, we did not use the word agile as a we're going to have lean, or we just lived it. I'm the CTO of the company, so fortunately I was able to say, this is how we're doing it, guys, and I hired the right people who believed in the values. There were people who did not believe in the values, so I always say my interview process is 1 month long. I have 3 days, first interviews, exams, written, etc., and then you join and your interview continues for your first month. Within the first month, you know whether the person lives your values. I only hire for attitude, not for capability. Capability, we can train. If you don't know how to do something, I can train you. Of course, you need the basics. You can't say I'm hiring a Java developer who doesn't know Java. So you need to know Java. So I think in that sense, I hope that answers the question a little bit that was asked.
Okay, next question, Phil. How much do you think the process principles of continuous improvement is linked to two people implicit principle of continuous failure and continuous learning?
Well, I think they're just different names for pretty much the same thing. I mean, you can't learn unless you fail and admit your failure, they say, and continuous improvement is about identifying what went wrong. Of course, you also have to identify what didn't go wrong and celebrate it, because you don't want to change that. So a simple retrospective, what's working well, what's not working well. I don't make it complex. I keep it absolutely simple. We are 20 of us. We're spread all over the world, and I've done this with big banks, and I've done this with small startups. You get on the screen once in 2 weeks and type your yellow stickies using Miro or any other tool you think. Today's world is completely virtual. And that's it. It took us 20 minutes. And you want to pick 3 things that you want to improve. And guess what I want to improve? I don't want to improve the things that are working well. I want to improve the things that are not working well. Okay. So we talk about it. We say, what can we improve? Okay, I'll pick this one up. Next 2 weeks, we're going to improve these 3 things. So continuous failure is all about admitting your failure. And continuous learning is all about learning from that failure. So I would say they're pretty much the same thing.
Okay. Would you say that most of the companies are using concept of business agility when setting up their strategy, or are there only certain category of companies who actually consider it?
It's a good question, because I don't think there's any category as such. I've seen it all over. I've seen it in not-for-profit, I've seen it in governmental, I've seen it in finance, I've seen it in manufacturing, retail. It just doesn't matter. I've also seen it in, as I said, in IBM with 440,000 people, over 198 companies, to small little startups of 20 people, or 100 people, or 1,000 people. The principles and values apply exactly the same. Of course, the scale of it becomes more difficult as you grow, and you have the challenges of that. But it definitely is not. I get a lot of questions of people who tell me where it does not work. And I'm sure there are some people thinking there must be somewhere it does not work. It does not work in a place that does not address it properly. It's like the marathon runner who wants to run the marathon but doesn't want to eat the right food, doesn't want to exercise, only wants to buy the right shoes, the Nike shoes. It will not work. But if you use the basis, as experience has shown, this is not me, this is almost 15 years of errors that people have had in a nutshell. That's what I'm putting on the table for you all. This is not some book. It's actually been done. So try it out. Now, will you fail when you try it out? The only thing I can guarantee is that you will fall. You will fail. Of course you will fail. It's because each organization is different. You try something and, oh, yeah, this manager doesn't agree, or that doesn't, and you learn. But you have to keep persevering. Again, it's like the marathon. Will you get up one morning feeling extremely tired? Yes, you will feel that. But you put on your shoes, you drink your right smoothie, and you go for your run. That's it. You have to persevere through it. And I think that's one of the challenges.
Okay. Can you suggest some practice about delegation and streamlining of decisional process?
It's a good question, because one of the main things that Amazon prides itself on, and nobody talks about it, is a measure called decision velocity. They measure the speed and they track the speed that managers make decisions. And there are two types of decisions. They call it the reversible decision, something that you can change. Today I decide to do this, and tomorrow I say, no, I was wrong, I'll change it. And the permanent decision that you cannot change, that takes a lot of effort to change. And they believe that the reversible decisions, 24 hours, you must be able to take a decision. 24 hours from the time it comes up, make a decision. You have to make a decision with 70% maximum of the data. If you wait till you have 100%, I'm sure this is going to be right, then it's not a decision, it's a fact. So decisions are made on incomplete information, sometimes inaccurate information, and it takes courage, it takes collaboration, it takes respect, it takes transparency, and it takes the commitment to talk together and say, okay, we're not sure, but let's do it. Now, I had one leader who told me, I asked him actually, how come you've been so successful as a CEO? And he said to me, because 51% of my decisions were right. Just look at that statement. 51%. So he made 49% decisions wrong. It's okay. You have some decisions will be wrong. So I think the number one rule, back to the question, is the decision principle has to be agreed. This is what we're going to do. Then you have to measure it. Now, in terms of delegation models and things like this, I would say use your common sense, push it down as low as possible. The decisions go, empower the team as low as possible. Only in few cases you escalate. Now, I've worked in large corporates. I grew up in a large corporate in Shell. And of course, you have delegation of authority limits. Initially, I could not sign for more than $50. Then you end up signing for 1,000, 2,000, 250, 1 million. Okay, you're the boss, you're the CIO, I can sign for 50 million. Yeah, great. But the process is still the same. You have to take a decision with unknown information and sign.
Okay, next question, Phil. What are your point on purpose-driven organization design in case like the global ING implementation of it?
Well, I don't, I've talked to a lot of people who have worked with ING. I've read all the ING papers in looking at banks because I've done transformations for 9 banks now. And of course, every bank that wants to do a transformation has to visit ING. So they pick up the bags and let's go to ING. Okay, they all go to ING and have the call, and then they come back and do something different. All the 9 banks did something different. They did not do what ING did. They cherry picked. Yeah, ING did this, but you know what? We're different. Oh, you're not different. A bank is a bank. They do deposits and lending. That's it. Yeah, and investments, some of them do the trading part as well. So if you go back to the customer, the question that we had is, what about the ING model? I think ING picked the agility model, nothing else. You could say it's the Spotify model or not the Spotify. It doesn't matter. All of them use the principles that I showed you. That's it. Don't worry about which model you're using. Those values and those principles, if you follow them, most of the frameworks have that in there. They're built in. So ING adopted it. When ING adopted it, they came up with problems. Of course they had problems because ING was different. They had different structures, different managers, different politics, and different leaders. They had a leader who had courage, who pushed this down. Because culture is top down. Culture cannot come bottom up. And he believed in it and he pushed it. Now, the other banks, out of the 9 banks that I've worked with, I must say 4 of them actually did the same. They pushed it down. They changed, they did it to fit their bank, which is what they should do. But there were others that tried it for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and then it was too difficult. I had one bank in Australia where we were doing a transformation, and we had a beautiful org redesign, because you cannot transform without looking at your structure. Your structure is what determines your process and your people after that. So we looked at the org structure. We had it done in 2 weeks. This bank was around 5,000 people, so not too big. And we said, in 3 days, we have to communicate to everybody, because the whole bank knew we were sitting for org design. Guess what do you think the stress was? Now, the CEO and the CIO took the comms away and they started wordsmithing it. And yeah, let's be careful. Let's be careful what we say. Let's be careful what we say. They sent it to the marketing department. The marketing department sent it to the comms department. The comms department sent it to the head of the GS. The head of the... After 1.5 months, nothing was communicated to anybody. So what do you think the stress levels were in the company? They were up here. Everybody was stressed. Reorganization. I'm going to lose my job. And then it became too hard and they closed it. So, you know, you have to commit. There was a leader who came in after that and picked it up, by the way, and dusted it, and they were a huge success. So they did come back, but it took leadership courage.
3 more questions. Can I read all together, then you choose out your...
Yeah. Okay.
That could be good. There is an IBM friend here. They say, we are recognizing a strong drive to focus on outcomes, taking continuous improvement, trying whatever practice or framework you believe right. As long as you experiment and judge your work based on the outcome it generates. Does it resonate with you and your model?
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to answer that straight away, because I think that's fantastic. I mean, if they're telling you you can experiment, you have to continuously improve, you have to deliver results. But now there is a word with outcome there that I'm always very careful about. There are many managers who tell you, is there a hidden message that says, if you fail, you're fired? Because what does it mean that it is based on outcomes? That means that if you don't hit your outcome, you're fired. Now, is that a safe environment? You may have continuous improvement, you may have feedback, but you don't have safety. So I don't know what the case is from the person who asked the question, but my question to them is, if you don't hit your outcome, which is possible sometimes, will they fire you?
Go on, Phil. I share all the concepts you express, which undoubtedly require a high level of awareness and maturity. From this point of view, for what you know, how the European and Italian markets are positioned compared to the USA or Anglo-Saxon markets, are we ready, in your opinion? And I go on with another one. How managers could feel safe in a horizontal organization? The most obstacle I've met in change journey I've faced with is to settle manager the right place to live and to be happy leaving some part of the control. Wow. Third, you mentioned that the Scrum Framework. Do you think that is profitable to a company invest in the use of the Scrum Framework to push the development of its product process without considering the need, a total company restructuring based on the agile mindset. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because I'm already starting to forget.
Yes, sorry, Phil.
No. Let me go with the last one, and then I'll ask you to repeat.
Okay.
So the first thing is, yes, the Scrum framework's a great framework. As I said, you can pick Scrum, you can pick Lean, you can pick whatever. If you don't address the values change, if you don't address the principles, yeah, let us supposing you change the Scrum, implement Scrum in your IT department, but your procurement department, your marketing department, your HR department, no, they don't believe in these values. I'm not talking about Scrum, forget about Scrum. They don't believe in the values under Scrum, forget it. Yeah, so that's on the Scrum side. I think it's a great framework, but the values are important. Fabio, read me the first one, because I liked that one as well. No, I can't hear you, you're on mute.
Sorry. It was about awareness and maturity about the Italian market.
Yes,
and there is another question.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. So I've actually worked for almost a year in Italy. So I'm based in Bratislava now, and I was working with IBM then. And as you know, IBM Italy is quite big. And I came down to IBM Italy. And I was actually quite amazed by the Italian sense of entrepreneurship. I had a couple of people in there who were just ready to go. So I believe that it is not a cultural thing that you say, oh, Italy is backward, or Switzerland is forward, or America is more forward. No, I think it's more individual. I have seen great leaders in Europe who take this. If you look at a company called Thuiszorg in Holland, that does not use the word business agility, but have been the shining light of reinventing organizations, and that's the name of the book as well. It's a Dutch company. They do fantastically. I lived in Holland for 20 years, so I know the Dutch. They can be very rigid, but they're also very entrepreneurial. Americans, I think they're willing to try anything, but they also have a downside to that. So I wouldn't call it cultural. I think Europe and Italy are ready to go as far as they need. However, the politics of big government, if you look at what's happened with our vaccines in Europe, well, you know, that's just not that they don't want to take the right decision. It's just the politics of it is so complex. So, yeah. All right, the next question, Fabio, the one I missed in between.
Yes, was how managers could feel safe.
Yes. Okay, good. Let's talk about the managers. They call it the frozen middle. Yeah, the CIO has agreed to do this. CEO has agreed to do this. The people underneath in the squads are ready to do this, and these people are scared they'll lose their job, or they're scared that their job will not be fulfilling. Now, this is the second point I talked about, which is the cascading strategy and collaborating to get it done. Just sending the managers a PowerPoint and saying, this is what we're going to do, will not work, because, of course, they're scared. They're not aware of the reality. In most companies that I worked in, the message of agility, what is agility? If you ask 3 people, you will get 4 opinions. You ask 10 people, you'll get 11 opinions of agility. So you have to invest time in awareness, and then you have to be honest. Now, the bank that I worked in Australia, I will give you a great example. So they had roughly 110 developers, and they had roughly 95 to 100 project managers. Now, this includes some line managers and squad leaders and everything. 100 managers for 110 developers, really? Yeah, sorry, that doesn't work. So be honest with them. In a company in Miami that I worked with, they had 50% too many managers. They actually developed the new organization in an agile workshop that I ran with the managers. They were so transparent. We said, there are 100 chairs. We have 200 managers. We're not putting any names. Let us design the org structure first. and we will have that separate conversation of who's remaining and who's not remaining. We did it within 2 weeks. So there was no stress, as little as possible stress, not 6 months of stress. And I was there when we had managers tell the CEO at that time that, thank you, even though I've lost my job, the process of how you involved me in this has been better than any company that I've ever been with. So I think honesty is important, and people are humans. We know when somebody is being dishonest. And there is nothing worse than somebody trying to tell us a lie and then screw us.
Great. There is another question, but you just in some way answer it, because it's about in Italy, by all of Europe, we are a lot of small, medium enterprise. So do you think, based on your experience, where to start with this kind of small business?
So small businesses are very interesting because small businesses don't have the communication collaboration challenge in the bigger companies. Now they have one aspect which could be an issue, and that is the ego of the founder. Normally they're family businesses. Yeah, they are run by the person who started it 30 years ago, and his son has taken over, his daughter has taken over. So there is a little bit of a, at the top, and this is all over the world, not only in Italy, there's a little bit of a style of management that has come up from the time there were 2 people till they are now, let's say, 300 people, 400 people. Yeah. So once these people at the top have make the decision to change and say, yeah, we think this is worth doing. Wonderful. You can do it. I would say roughly a group of up to even 500 to 1,000 people. You can make this change happen in maximum 1 to 2 months. That's it. Completely. And it's fantastic. But that top level of 3 to 4 owners and their right hand and their left hand, commit, decide, commit.
Well, thank you so much, Phil. It was really interesting.
Thank you very much.